Go. Right. Hi everyone. We'll just keep admitting people just for a couple of seconds as everyone jumps in. We've got some back-to-backers from the welfare chat. That's a good stint that from people. We'll just give it one more second. We'll kick off in about a minute's time. Hold on. Okay, we will. I think we'll make a start, and as I say, if any latecomers pop in, we'll get them up to speed as they come in. Welcome everybody. Thanks for tuning in. Really, obviously, really appreciate everybody taking the time to engage with us tonight. Lots and lots of information that's come out over the last week or so. Lots to digest. Lots going on. I mean, the point of tonight is effectively just trying to help as many people across the network as possible, predominantly clubs, just trying to bring some of that guidance to life a little bit. There's been a lot of FAQs, a lot of queries, you know, and I guess the point for everybody who's on this call and for those that are going to catch up with this on a recording afterwards is effectively to take away as much as you can around, you know, when you go away and resume cricket, that you're as comfortable in knowing what you need to do as possible, really. So to that end, let's have a really productive hour. I'll try and keep it within an hour as best I can, and we'll see how it goes. Just a couple of housekeeping bits, if I may, before we properly kick off. If everybody could keep your microphones on mute, please. There's plenty that aren't at the moment, just to try and limit some of the background noise as much as we can. That would be great. Chat box is definitely I'm sure going to get used tonight, so could you please use that? Don't be shy to chip into that at any stage. We do have kind of some segmented themes of questions, so I'll try and steer the questions, and I'll try and direct you to ask questions at certain points as we go, if that's all right. Who's the speaker? John Remington. Hello, John. I'm Matt Thompson, head of the talent pathway at Cricket Wales. So thanks for that. Well done for testing the chat box. By means of introduction, actually, we have got the whole Cricket Wales team here actually on this call. So we've got Sue Wells, Keri, Chahal, Mark White as our area managers on the call. We do have Leshia Hawkins, our CEO, on the call. And we do have Mark Frost and myself on the call as well. So largely it'll be the three area managers and Leshia to answer most of the questions, and Frosty and I can jump in as we go. I've got one more introduction to make, and we do have a guest. We did mention we have a guest. Jamie Greig is joining us from Spencer Cricket Club. For those of you that don't know, Spencer Cricket Club, thriving cricket club in London, and is in many ways kind of a flagship club for lots of clubs to aspire to. Women and girls section, disability, you name it. They've got pretty much everything going on, and I'll try and keep Jamie from telling us all the stuff that goes on for too much, because there's so much good stuff from what I've heard. So Jamie, welcome tonight. We wanted to have somebody that you know, really from a club in England that are a little bit further ahead than we are, and just to kind of offlay a few bits of feedback that the network in Wales can learn off before we kick off on the weekend effectively. So without further ado, Jamie, we're going to start with you, if that's all right, bud. We'll kind of structure the night. We'll kind of go 10-15 minutes of Q&A with you, and I'll lead that. And as I say, if anybody wants to jump in with some sensible Q&As, I can try and get to as many of those as I can. And then we'll go into kind of the Welsh guidance and explore some of that with the Cricket Wales staff, if that's okay. So yeah, welcome, Jamie. Thanks for joining us, mate. Much appreciated.
Thank you very much indeed for having me. An absolute pleasure.
Cool. I guess first one, easy one. What's gone well in amongst all the guidance that's come about, and it's, you know, a bit all hands on station for every cricket club. What's gone well for you guys since you've resumed?
Yeah, I mean, it's really the numbers that we've managed to get through and get some cricket. We are a bit unlike probably any other club that most people would have come across. We have about 1,500 members, or 1,500 junior members, and about 100 adult members. So just to give you a rough idea, it's about 1,000 boys, 500 girls, and about 100 adults, and about 70 academy players, male and female. So I think our biggest thing that we had to try and do was to just find a way to give our members some cricket this year. So one of the very, very early steps that we took was to decide that we were going to just completely target and completely concentrate on our members. We usually run holiday courses, 12 weeks of holiday courses as well throughout the year as well. So we decided that we were going to abandon that for this year and just concentrate on giving our members a return basically for their subscriptions. Obviously that helped us to avoid the situations where we were going to have to potentially refund some or all. So it was really, I mean, we started the process as we went into lockdown in March, and I'm sure this is very, very similar to the process that everybody else has gone through. Just sort of multiple scenario planning, just really not knowing what was around the corner, what could happen. And then once we received the guidance, it's adapting what we had already planned to make sure that it was safe under the terms of the guidance as well. And then trying to implement it as quickly as we were able to do. So it started off in I think it was May 18, we were able to open our nets. So we have 6 nets. So obviously we could use 4 of them because the centre lanes had to remain closed. So in a couple of weeks, we managed to get about, I think we got about 500 family households through the nets, running them pretty much all day. We have a very, very large coaching team as well. So we have possibly 30, 40 coaches that we use, of which probably 95% of them are all former juniors from the club as well. So they understand the whole ethos about Spencer. They buy into it, and we've got some very, very good young coaches who seem to really, really bring the best out of all the young people that we've got at the club as well. So doing that, I mean, I think probably the most difficult thing has been the volume of messaging, the volume of information that has to go out, and quite understandably, people just don't necessarily get all of the points in there. So we decided that from a kind of a guide to the ground, that one of the first things that we would do would put in a visualization, because so many people seem to be better at picking up visual clues than just reams and reams and reams of guidance and the rest of it. And then it was a question of really just trying to identify what those key bits of guidance were, the ones that perhaps once you start running for a few days, that you could see that people were probably having a little bit more difficulty trying to actually deal with that guidance, and then going on to just reinforce those particular points and make sure that everybody knew exactly what was going on. So we did that for a couple of weeks. We then went into small group coaching. Over 5 weeks of small group coaching, we've had just over 4,000 children through the program, and that's been doing it in evenings, during the week, and sort of 8:30 to 8:30 on Saturdays and Sundays. So it's been taxing, and but it's been incredibly rewarding, really, for what we did. And then beginning of this week, we started match play we started a match at the weekend for our women's first team. Always been a big one to try and push the women forward, to try and do, to be at the forefront of everything that we do. And I think that was an incredibly important message to put across as well. And so this week, if it all goes to plan, about 740 children will play matches this week. We're doing it from 9 o'clock in the morning till 8:30 in the evening. We're going to do that for a couple of weeks. and then we're going to revert. So these are all internal matches, because obviously we get a better opportunity to give more of our members cricket than if we start inviting external fixtures to begin with. So we're going to do that for a couple of weeks, and then we're then going to go into a kind of more traditional sort of friendlies. There'll still be some internals as well.
Can I just pop in there? I mean, we've got a few on the thing. You know, the scale of what you guys have got on is vastly, probably. I'm not sure we club in Wales on that scale.
Yeah.
And I guess part of the reason we wanted to bring you in is if you guys can find a way to do it, then hopefully that shows that we can. It's not a walk in the park, but compared to what you guys have got to deal with, by the sounds of it, hopefully it does show that there is a way forward for hopefully a club. So, just in terms of, you mentioned a few practical bits there: early start times, targeting your members. Any other really kind of small practical bits there that have gone particularly well for you guys?
Yeah, I mean, I think we've had a lot of members' parents interaction as well. I mean, I think apart from anything, just from the whole from a mental capacity and a mental side of things, I think just bringing people together so that they were able to interact with other children, but also the parents being able to interact with each other as well. I think that was a very, very important thing, and I think that's where we got a lot of buy-in in terms of what we can do. I mean, we weren't able to obviously offer anything like a normal season, although it kind of, I think that there is a template here for how we would actually run things. This is far more managed. We put in a brand new communication system as well, which is an app called Spond, which I'm not sure if anybody has come across. But from managing communications, I think without that we would have been in some considerable difficulty to try and target everybody. And we just put this in. That's how our members actually signed up this year. So we had a captive audience because everybody had paid their membership through it. So therefore, everybody was on this system and could get the communication. So I think the communication side of things is right up there at the top in terms of importance of making sure that you can actually execute these, the plans that you've got. It's very difficult if you can't get the message across to everybody.
Sure, and you've kind of said that's probably understandably one of your biggest challenges. Anything else in terms of, I guess, implementing the guidance? There's all the things around one way walking systems around the boundaries, those types of things. Have you guys, is there anything kind of in the practical guidelines that you guys have either found a really good solution to or have struggled with, if that makes sense?
Yeah. I mean, it was the, so I mean, Spencer is a multi-sport club. So we have hockey, tennis, squash, lacrosse, netball as well. And tennis were the first to open up. And so the courts are very, very close to the clubhouse. So we established a one-way system around the clubhouse for tennis. But we had a gate, like a sort of set of double gates, which people for years and years have been banging on about. Can't we use the double gates? Can't we use the double gates? Well, we're now using the double gates, and that's our entrance into cricket. And then that's the one-way system around as well. So it makes us self-contained within the overall club structure, and obviously important making sure that there were toilet facilities which opened up as quickly as possible. The most ridiculous amount of hand wash and cleaning products and stuff, because I mean it's literally every net session you have to clean down after all the contact points in the net. So there's a few coaches who've got hands that look quite interesting at the moment, who seem to be sort of those sort of things really.
Yeah, cool. No, that's really helpful. And I guess lastly, kind of headline take home points, say we've got a lot of clubs and people on this call, but a lot of people will catch up with this later tonight or before the weekend over the next week. What kind of take home key bits of advice would you be saying to people on this call who are kind of manning the stations at their clubs? What
sure
kind of go for there?
So be very clear about what you're trying to do, what you're trying to achieve. make sure that you communicate it, but above all, be prepared to be flexible in your approach. I think those are very, very much the key thing. The flexibility is very important. You can go down one particular route and you think that that's the way it's going to work, but actually you can see the signs very, very quickly that perhaps there's something that needs tweaking there. You might want to change formats for for some of the ones where you think that they might want to play more hardball. Actually, there's a greater demand for softball, so obviously you've got to work out your pitch configurations and stuff like that. So I think the flexibility is the big takeaway. That I don't think you can start off trying to press on to achieve a particular thing, but as soon as you see an opportunity to review that and then implement something slightly different or be flexible on it, and then I think that would be very, very useful for everybody.
Just if you don't mind me asking, how regular have you guys as a committee and or the team that are kind of at the club associated with making sure everything's okay? How often have you guys kind of regularly reviewed? Do you converse pretty daily, weekly? How have you guys?
Yeah, I would speak to the chairman of the club. So we have a chairman and two co-junior chairs as well. So I'd be in regular contact with them, and with the chairman in the kind of early stages, it was a kind of daily, couple 3 times a week type of discussions. And then, unfortunately, once you get going, you're in the tunnel, then, aren't you? And it's quite difficult. I mean, it's the same as everybody preparing for a season of cricket. You have all these great ideas, but as soon as you actually push go, it's quite difficult to deviate from where you are. So, the contact's not quite as regular anymore, but seems to be going all right, I think.
Yeah, superb. But we obviously will keep a watch on how you guys are getting on, and we've certainly used some of those visual net stuff. It's that's a really good resource to be able to use, and hopefully some other clubs would have benefited from seeing that as well. I'm just going to move on if that's okay, but if anybody has got a specific question for Jamie that you want to try and get to, I think we'll probably, depending on time, try and address that towards the end, if that's all right. We'll try and get through the Welsh guidelines bits as best we can, and then we'll come back to that. So if anybody does have one, just make reference that it's a question for Jamie in the chat box, and we'll go from there. Just before we kind of move on to some of the Welsh guidelines, before I introduce Leshia, just to start us off, those of you, I'm not going to share my screen now, I'll share it with everybody at the end, but look, the Cricket Wales website does have all the documentation that we have shared at the moment. The news section, all the COVID section has got all of the key information at the moment. As I say, we appreciate it is a lot. But if anybody's in any doubt or hasn't been able to find it or hasn't received it or whatever's going on, it's all very easily accessible on the website. So do have a look and point your players and whoever's going to be participating on the weekend to have a good read if they can. Okay, I said I'd themed up some questions, and kind of a lot of the questions have come in prior to this session. We've kind of got a general section which we're going to kick off with in a minute. We've got a junior cricket section, and we've got kind of an in-play guidelines section, which a lot of the questions are based around. So we're going to kick off with those in a second, but I'm just going to introduce Leshia at this point, and many of you will have seen Leshia, maybe not in person, but on social media and various other bits. So there's one bit that we want to clarify first and foremost around spectators. We've had a lot of queries around spectators, what's allowed, what's not, how do we do this and this. So, Lesh, do you want to just give us your kind of the overarching where Cricket Wales, where we are at the moment?
Sure, thank you. Good evening, everyone. Thank you very much for joining us as well. As you say, nice to see some faces, and unfortunately you are still faces, but hopefully before too long we'll be able to meet in person. But really appreciate you giving up your time and trying to unpick this. And I'm very, very conscious there's a lot in the guidance. Obviously we do have to do this very safely. So yeah, please just bear with us. But yeah, I'll take the supporters question first. If you'll permit me, I'm just going to read from the Welsh Government website. This is not my usual kind of style, but I think it's important that people understand it's Welsh Government talking rather than Cricket Wales or ECB. And obviously our guidelines, while we issue the guidance as a sports national governing body, we have to fall in behind the reams and reams and reams of guidance that appeared on the Welsh Government website on Tuesday. So I'll just read you the section on spectators. Supporters and other spectators should be limited at this stage to only those persons who need to attend, e.g. parents or guardians of children who require their attendance for health or safeguarding reasons. All spectators are to remain socially and physically distanced from each other and from the area of play while attending events, including accessing and leaving the venue, use of any facilities whilst watching gameplay. Anyone on the area of play or closer to it than social distancing rules would permit will count towards the total number of people considered to be gathered for the organised outdoor activity, where a limit of no more than 30 persons applies. So, just to be clear, Welsh law, Welsh government law elsewhere still prohibits gatherings, technically, of more than 2 households. Welsh government law still prohibits spectators from professional sporting events. You're not seeing them at the football, very unlikely to see them certainly in August and possibly for the rest of the cricket season at Sapphire Gardens. So, this is Welsh Government guidance around spectators at organised events. There's the guidance itself here, I think, and then there's the spirit of the guidance and what we've been permitted to do. This doesn't mean that the spirit of the guidance means if you are playing on a public park like Llandaff Fields near me and somebody puts a deck chair down, you have to either shoo them away or go and chase after them for their test, trace, protect details. Or if you play at a ground that has a pub nearby just across the road and there's some people outside the pub, you don't have to run over to them and say you can't watch our sport. But the reality is here we're in the most privileged position. We're going to be the first team sport back in Wales, and there will be a lot of sports that will be waiting for a good few weeks and probably months. So we are at the front of the queue here, and it's a privilege that we're there, and we need to be the leaders in this. And there's people out there who are either a little bit jealous of our position, quite frankly, or there'll be people out there who'll be looking for us to fail for whatever reason. We just can't abuse that privilege by, excuse my language, but taking the piss, okay? Cricket can't be seen to be encouraging gatherings. We'd be firmly on the wrong side of the law if we do that. We've been given the right, per the latest First Minister's statement and the change in the law, to have regulated organised activity in groups of up to 30. So we already have 26 to 30 people playing cricket. If you've got another 20 people outside the bar, on the decking, cheering wickets and boundaries, bantering away, somebody who walks past that ground who would be minded to complain, will see that as a gathering. And then, the chain of events is police are called, they come down, they find one breach, that game is shut down, that club is possibly shut down, that club is possibly fined, people there are possibly fined, cricket is possibly put back on the back burner, the rest of community sport possibly is put on the back burner, and frankly I don't want that on my conscience. So I get that, yes, technically you are also permitted to have outdoor hospitality now in Wales. My take on this, and it is my take because it's not strictly clear in the guidance, but if you are having an organised activity and you have your bar open for those people, I think that's fab. Great, exactly what the law probably is intended to do and the spirit of the guidance. But if you think about it, logically, more people at the venue equals more risk for everyone, health-wise, reputation-wise, and when sunshine and lager is involved, those risks also go through the roof. So, if you want to be opening bars and hospitality, outdoor hospitality, on a Friday night when there's no cricket activity going on, great, great for revenue for the bars. But I think the focus in this short term has to be on getting back to playing and playing an adaptive form of cricket. We are all going to have to adapt and not wipe our brow and put sweat on the ball, and not be focusing on, all the bells and whistles and cricket as it used to be last summer. That will come, and it will come later. But as I say, I just have to return you to the Welsh Government advice about spectators being limited to those that need to be there. And I know it sounds very draconian, but it is so important that we don't muck this up, for cricket and for the rest of sport. I hope that helps. I'm sorry for the big speech, but
no, that's really helpful. Look, I did say I'd try and get around to as many queries as possible. So Leshia, this looks like the only one. I don't know how you want to play this one, but John is asking, football training either side of our playing area seems to be made up of very large households in inverted commas. What's FAW saying on that?
I don't understand the question. John, could you possibly unmute yourself? I'm not a spokesperson for FAW, so I don't know what they're saying.
Yeah, we've virtually got full games happening either side of our playing area. We've no control over that.
No.
But this week, all of a sudden, because of the 30 bodies rule, football training has started full blast. So Ian Pembry's suggested that may not actually be correct.
Which bit might not be correct, sorry?
That they can be playing practice games.
I haven't read the FAW's guidance. I saw an infographic that FAW Trust put out. I think it's small groups and it's certainly no contact and they're certainly socially distanced and 2 meters away. But like I say, it's kind of up to football. I appreciate where it's then impinging on your space. That's a very different matter. But you wouldn't be responsible for the footballers. I'm talking about where cricket clubs can control the message that goes to their members and the message that goes to the people that, you know, might want to turn up and think that they can spectate in the local derby. Currently, they can't.
I understand that, but telling people they've got to do this, well, they can watch people doing exactly the opposite, isn't a very easy sell.
No, I accept that. But as I say, unfortunately, I can't control what football's doing. You know, if there is a genuine concern, then just as people will be quite probably ready to dob cricket in, then perhaps that should be addressed either locally, you know, either friendly word or through the authorities. But as I say, you know, without knowing that area and without being a spokesperson for the FAW, it'd be very difficult for me to say what they are and aren't permitting.
Cool. Well, we'll leave it there hopefully, and just obviously we'll try and not go down the unmuting. I can't see every screen just for people that aren't aware, so I won't know if someone's got a query or not. So we'll try and stick to chat if we can, but obviously that one's a small exception. Wonderful. We've a bit of clarity there on spectators hopefully and where we are. We're going to go to the general Q&A's section, which Mark and Sue are kindly going to go into bat for us for on this one. So I'm just going to kind of go through the whole, or as many of the questions that we received prior to this session tonight. They've come in for the last week or so. First one is, will we be producing a COVID risk assessment template? Sue, do you want to start us off on that one?
Yeah, sure. Actually, we've just released one on our website not too long ago, but we'd hope anyone that's going to play this weekend naturally has started to make their own. Area managers will send that out first thing tomorrow morning, but it is now on our website.
Superb, thanks for that. I don't want to keep jumping back and forth. I'm just going to go back to Leshia for 1 second on the spectators, and as I say, I probably should have prompted people just to question spectator queries before we go. We'll just go one from Dave. If you've got a social bar outdoors and a cricket match is going on, the people in the bar area may not be interested in the cricket. How do we police this as a cricket club?
This is a little bit like the Mark White challenge that I had on this earlier today. And I guess it falls a little bit in with the pub across the road thing. Obviously, if it's a sort of multi-sport site, I would expect that the sports would talk to each other and that the venues would then obviously have some kind of level of mitigation. We can't police and we can't, make an expectation for every single club and the way they operate and how many people might or might not be interested in the cricket. I think, as I say, I just want to be really clear on my messaging to clubs, and what clubs should be messaging to their members is that cricket cannot be seen to be encouraging mass gatherings of people basically on the lash watching the cricket. But I do accept that there will be certain circumstances where you've got, a separate sort of sports and social club, and yes, there might be people there. It's kind of like having lots of people in Clandar Fields, but it's just be sensible, and let's be, grown up, and let's just manage and mitigate the risk wherever possible. We're in such a privileged position, as I keep repeating. We just can't muck this up, and I just don't want cricket to be in any way seen as responsible for any second spike or any kind of risk to our communities. We're supposed to be part of the solution, and I really think that cricket and sport as a whole can be part of the solution. I hope that.
Yeah, no, superb. I think Matt Pritchard, that hopefully answers your query as well on that one. Okay, cool. We'll try and park the spectators bit, and I think we'll just try and keep it moving down the theme. I did say I'd try and keep it within an hour if at all possible, but we'll go as long as we need to. just going back to the general then, one question, is it mandatory to produce a risk assessment document, or is it simply a case of communicating verbally? Mark White, do you want to just tackle that one for me?
Yeah, as Sue said, we've released a risk assessment, and most clubs or majority of clubs will already have their own risk assessment. One thing I will say, and I'll speak from a personal experience in my own club, you need to share that with everyone. There's no point in one person owning that risk assessment and owning all the responsibilities of it if you're not going to share it with all your members as much as you can. But you'll need to break it down, and the infographics that we shared with you the other night, and they're all over the social media networks. Share those in your WhatsApp group. Let's keep reminding players of the risks and what we need to do and what guidance there is there for them. I would recommend that there is a bit of a leadership group who kind of manage this COVID risk assessment, because it will be slightly different from your everyday risk assessment. But just make sure that we're relaying messages to the players so everyone's very clear on what to expect when going out on that field, whether it be Friday, Saturday or Sunday. Make sure everyone's clear on it.
And I guess the bit I'd add to that is a verbal risk assessment is not good enough at this point. I would go as far to probably say, there's a lot of information to relay for people. This is all very new. I don't think that's overly realistic for people to expect to relay a verbal risk assessment back to their teams, parents, coaches, or whoever's involved. So I think we are pushing for that formal document, whether it's one of your own or a templated version of ours. Superb. We've had a lot. This one came up in the welfare chat at 7 o'clock. But first aid is a good one that's been raised by a number of people. Administering, do we administer first aid with social distancing? How do we do that? What's the guidance on that? Sue, do you want to just come back in on that one for us?
Yeah, sure. Within our guidelines, actually, there's links to the St. John's Ambulance COVID guidelines. Ultimately, obviously, we as clubs, we've still got a duty of care in there if a player is injured to provide first aid. It is recommended anyone that administers wears PPE, face coverings, gloves, apron. But obviously, we've got to see, it depends what the injury is. If you're looking at Welsh Government advice, injuries during play, so during the game, they should still be treated. Participant well-being is the key, really. But remembering afterwards, if you've administered first aid, to protect yourself and others, obviously through the hygiene measures. Just as an aside on that as well, the NatWest Cricket Force, I think you can, if you sign up for that, there's a little free pack as well in terms of some PPE and some hygiene. And I know some of the leagues are sending that out.
Yeah, cool. Nice one. Thanks, Sue. We're going to keep whittling through on general stuff. Can clubs provide plated teas for players at matches? There's another one, outdoor facilities open to serve food. Can we provide food and refreshments? Whitey, do you want to just clarify that one for us?
Yeah, absolutely not. We wouldn't want to put that risk, or the club wouldn't want that risk anyway. You need to remind any of your players who are playing this weekend that they need to bring their own food, otherwise they're going to go hungry for a long time, unless their mate is going to give them a bite of their sandwich. But no, let's not have that risk. It's in the guidance, it's there, it's clear. They need to bring their own food. And in terms of preparing food and sell it on site, no either.
Cool, thanks, mate. Last one on general stuff before I open up some if you've got any kind of queries on general bits and bobs. As a rural club, our closest away game is around 45 minutes. What's the current advice on car sharing? Sue, just to finish us off on that one, do you want to just go for that one?
Yeah, that should be avoided. And again, we need to abide by the Welsh Government regulations on travel. So we really do emphasise that if clubs can get that message across to their players, to abide by the travel guidelines, and that again is really important.
Cool, thanks. We've got a question here. When is PP pack due to arrive? I'm not sure I entirely understand that one. John, do you want to expand on that?
If that's due to Cricket Force, not quite sure if that's the NatWest Cricket Force, but okay. If that's what that's related to.
Okay. We'll wait for John to come back and we can, there you go. Cool, NatWest, no problem. Wonderful. Okay. Has anybody got anything, and we'll try and keep it within the realms of being sensible around. We don't want to spend half an hour on kind of all general questions, but anything else if you've got, we'll try and tie off general Q&As and FAQs now. Gareth Edwards, what about non-drivers and youngsters? How do they get to away games? I'm not sure who popped out on mute there, but if you want to pop your question into the chat box as well, that's fine. What about non-drivers and youngsters? How do they get to away games? Lesh, do you want to come in on that one?
Yeah, thanks for that.
Sorry, I've
it's fine. It's fine.
Given you a corridor of uncertainty on that one.
It's absolutely fine. I'll waft at this one. No, look, this is Welsh Government advice. You know, if you are not in an extended household, you know, car sharing, even in England, I don't think car sharing is even permitted except for an essential journey. And then you can get into the debate as to whether a cricket match is an essential journey or not. But yeah, you need to be in a family or extended household, to my knowledge, to be car sharing in Wales, but it's Welsh Government advice rather than cricket advice.
Fab, thanks. One final query before we move. Oh, sorry, I keep getting Mark Rees. We're trying to go on the chat box, Mark. Are you able to go on the chat box or not?
No, I can't. Don't know how to use it.
Right. Okay. Do you wanna just share your query with us very quickly before?
Right. We've got a lad that in our under 13s has borderline autism, and he had a problem. He wasn't going to come back because he was worried about breaking the rules and what have you. Is there any guidance on that?
On what specifically, sorry?
He's borderline autism. He's like, because we've had to put all the stringent rules in place, he was worried that if he broke the rules or couldn't absorb the rules, he would have to be escorted off site. Now, what we've actually done is we brought him in for 2 or 3, in fact, it's been 3 one-on-one sessions with myself, just to try and bring him into the...
Can I interrupt here? Sorry, Gareth, I know we were supposed to be on mute, but just in the interest of time, Gareth, I think will have some experience on this. Sorry, Matt, but I know Gareth may be able to have some guidance potentially from education settings.
Hello, Mark. How you doing, mate? So what I would say there is that as a maths teacher, I had to do a lot in terms of autistic young people. It's about sitting them down and breaking it down into small chunks, and their concern is always the ramifications if they break the rules, and it's to make them understand that they are someone that follow the rules, and then that won't be a huge bother to them, and that it's to explain things in black and white as much as possible, and to take any elements of confusion out of that. And actually, it's an easier process to explain to those on the autistic spectrum because they don't have the periphery concerns that those who are off it do.
Yeah, well, what I actually did was I've actually brought him in to do a couple of one-on-one sessions with myself just to get him into the mindset of when he comes back with the rest of them.
Mark, if I can, without sounding like I'm moving it on, if you want to take that conversation offline with Gareth, if that's all right, and that's not
that's fine.
That specific one. We do have the disability cricket team in Wales that will be resuming play at some stage. So we've definitely got to consider all of the sensitive issues around making sure that the information is digested effectively. So it's a valid point you make. I in that specific example, if you want to, Ian has offered for you if you'd like to take that up with him as well.
No problem. I'll get in touch with him on Twitter. Superb, lovely, thank you.
Just one question before we move on, and then we're gonna whittle through. No use of communal scorebook. Big ask for one parent in a junior regional game to score a whole longer form game. Is there any leeway or suggestions? I mean, I can take that one. The guidance is the guidance, really. It is a tough ask. There are there may be people in extended households that can share the load of that. I'm not sure, but I'm not sure the guidance is pretty explicitly clear. You don't want to.
Yeah, it should be limited. Sorry, Matt, but it should be limited, just like handling the ball should be limited. Look, if somebody really has to leave and somebody then has to take the scorebook over, I'm not going to hunt you down. But it's another common sense. You know, we just need to limit the sharing of communal articles, basically, and the scorebook is obviously one of those.
Superb. Okay, cool. We're going to move on, if that's okay with everybody. Junior cricket's a very short section. I haven't had, besides the scorebook one, actually, there's not too many on the junior cricket front, and I'll take these ones. Sharing of kit for juniors. Look, the guidelines are pretty clear that the sharing of equipment should not happen, you know, at all times, really, unless there's literally no other way you can do it. You know, we appreciate helmets aren't cheap. You know, I guess if there's a lot of youngsters that need helmets sharing, there's maybe a question there around, look, is hardball the right things at the moment? Is softball a more sensible option for them potentially at this point? You know, there are, you know, in the same way that we've around the scorebook, again, it's common sense and taking every single mitigation you can to avoid, you know, to avoid issues, really. So that's kind of where we go. Same with batting gloves, you know, sweaty hands going into batting gloves, those types of things. Those are the things that are posing us the biggest risk, really. So if at all costs we can avoid that where we can, that's where we probably are on that. 12-a-side is 12-a-side allowed if the group of 30 participants is 30 or below? Yes, effectively. I don't think everybody will have 2 umpires in junior cricket. I don't think everybody will have 2 scorers in junior cricket, which means our number's not going to be at 30. So, look, if it means that more kids or 1 or 2 more kids can get to play and it's 12-a-side, yeah, that's not a problem. We had a really good one that was on the welfare chat around physical workloads for youngsters. Is there a limit on the amount juniors should play aside from the fast bowling directives, given they're cramming 4 months of play into what's left of the summer? The answer is yes, there is a limit to that. That goes off ECB guidance in the same way that throwing does. It tends to be the 7-4-2 rule of thumb. For those of you that aren't aware what that is, that's 7 days. 7 days. As a youngster, you probably should be not playing more than 4 games within those 7 days. And the 2 is that you shouldn't be playing probably more than 2 consecutive days cricket within that week. So that's what we try and stick to. As I say, we appreciate kids will want to be utilising every spare minute of the time to get out on the park and play, but the last thing we'd want is to be causing physical damage to them as well at the same time. Anything on junior cricket, I'm happy to just leave the chat box there for 20 seconds or so if anything's got anything really pressing they'd like to go on that. One suggestion around the scorebook stuff and online scoring, iPad, wiping the iPad, though, this goes back to what we said previously, just again common sense and trying to limit the contact that's going around. Okay, we're going to go to in-play guidelines. I think this is probably one of the longer ones. And again, it's as people are delving into the detail of what's allowed. Keri, Chahal, if you want to come into bat for us on this section, bud, if that's all right. I think we've kind of answered the first one, haven't we? Are umpires part of the 30 in the activity? That we're yes there, aren't we, mate?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think it's a point worth clarifying. 30 is the magic number for all cricket activities. On a Saturday when we play in, the 30 is built up of the players, the coaches, and in the guidelines it says officials. What we're referring to officials actually means umpires and scorers, not chairman, not the treasurer, not the gravy train that sometimes comes along. Officials are all part of the activity to do the actual cricket on the day. So yes, absolutely, umpires are included in those 30.
Fantastic. Here's a good one for you. What is the maximum number of children you can have in a group to coach? We've kind of touched on that, haven't we? But if you want to...
yeah, well, exactly. If everybody just focuses on the cricket activity, it has to include 30. So if you work down initially, first thing you have to do is work out your coaching ratios. Coaching ratios and good coaching practice is there. It's there all the time, even in line with the restrictions we've currently got. So if you needed 4 coaches, they're included in your 30. and then obviously there's 26 players. Good coaching practice would probably dictate that you should be splitting them out in sort of probably 3 groups. So yeah, the fact that we got 30 in an activity shouldn't mean that we got 30 kids all crumbling around each other. So whatever activities are going to happen, we then got to refer to the guidelines about ensuring that there's a social distancing, obviously wiping down a plastic kit, kids don't share the same balls, etc. So that's the common sense approach, but obviously the magic number continues to be 30, which includes, in the instance of children, the coaches as well.
Yeah, cool. Thanks, mate. Question from Ian Phillips. Are umpires supposed to supply the bails? Yes, they are. I've just clicked on the officials' guidance. The umpire is responsible for the provision of bails, so that's a yes to that one, Ian. And just to reiterate that myself as a keeper, a very annoying keeper that often takes the bails and causes lots of pains for umpires, I will no longer be able to touch, reassemble the stumps. So again, that's umpires' prerogative, keepers not to be touching bails. So bails or umpires is the easiest way to think of that one throughout the course. Bring it and deal with them on the day. Staying on the topic of umpires, Keri, how does the umpire socially distance from the bowler? Was a question we came through. He doesn't need to. Behind the scenes, I spoke to Leshia about this about a week or so back. Behind the scenes, before the ECB issued the officials and the ACO guidelines, there's been a lot of scientific sort of research done around transient movement, around you and I walking past each other on a street. Essentially, that evidence has enabled the umpires to stay where they are. Split second, a bowler runs past an umpire, so they don't have to move. I know that some videos have been umpire needs to step to the right and move back. Absolutely not. Umpires can stay where they are. Umpires will have to make a personal choice. They may want to take a half a step back if they're feeling more comfortable, but they don't need to be, off their main position that they would be when they're obviously looking at the striker. As most umpires have probably got, their own habits to trudge across the square leg. As players, we just got to make sure that we stay away from them. We're more likely it's easier for us to move 2 meters and allow some of the old boys to jump out the way of us. So yes, we would try to stay away from them, obviously, but they can stay where they are. Yeah. Hopefully, John Remington, that answers your query. If players are umpiring, if you're not appointing umpires, it's the same principle. Isn't it? Yeah, absolutely. Yes, Steve, I will try not to take them off as much as possible. Thanks for that. Ian Pembury, good query on the chat box. With regards to risk assessments, if as a club we are hiring a ground from another club, do they need to produce a risk assessment for their facility, or I'm assuming that's, or do you do it, Ian? Lesh, do you want to tackle that one?
Yeah, I've typed the facility provider is responsible for the risk assessment. Clearly, if you are going to be there, you are entitled to have a say in, okay, talk me through this and query it, but it's the facility provider.
Oh, sorry, you've mentioned it in the chat box. I beg your pardon. I'm catching up with the various questions that are coming in from the chat box. All good. Keri, we were going to get to this one, I think, but Laura's beaten us to it. If there is more than one age group training at one time, can the pitch be halved and 30 on each side, or is it 30 training on the ground as a whole? We were able to give an answer to that, aren't we? Yeah, well, I looked at the All-Stars guidelines actually gave me the answer to this. You can actually split the 2 areas up into 2 groups of 30 as long as they're well apart and we keep the bubbles apart. But, obviously it's managing the numbers from other aspects, not just on the field, access into the car park, socially distancing around the club facilities. If toilets are the only facilities that we need to use. So, yeah, the more bubbles of 30 you create, the more difficult it's going to manage the other issues that come with it. Because, if we're dealing with junior age groups, and obviously their parents would be there from an essential spectator point of view, and obviously safeguarding, as we've covered before. So, yes, I would say the maximum I would recommend probably, if you looked at a club like yourselves, Laura, at Mumbles, would be, and I know the size of the car park and the way it works, 2 groups of 30 maximum. I wouldn't be going further than that. But obviously within the groups, absolutely keep the good coaching guidance going, the coaching ratios in place, etc., etc. Superb, thanks, Kat. Steve Davis, keeper standing up close to the stumps. What's the guidance? I was going to go on, Leshia.
No, it's fine. Go on. I was going to get all techie again, so it's fine.
No, let's hear it. Go for it. Let's go.
Okay, so the guidance, Welsh Government guidance, permits a conditional breach of the social distancing rules. So players must be 2 metres apart at all, minimally 2 metres apart at all times, but there is provision for a conditional breach of that to a maximum of 1 metre. So you still have to be a metre plus, although that's not language in Wales, in a competitive environment. Our mitigation to that guidance is that between deliveries, if you have found yourself in a conditional breach situation, you must then walk away between deliveries to minimise the proximity of contact between you and either an opponent or possibly wicketkeeper first slip, but most likely, clearly, close fielders and batsmen. But so, yeah, you can, but you have to walk away in between, and you always have to be no closer than a metre.
Cool, thanks, Lesh. Thanks for clarifying that one. We're just going to carry on with Keri's in-play guidance. Really important one, this actually, and this might be a learner. We may come back to Jamie for this one towards the end if he's got anything he wishes to add to this from a Spencer perspective. But is there any scope for the 6-over clean-up sanitisation break to take place in a natural, i.e. fall of wicket or stoppage to try and keep the game flowing? Keri, this is a big one for us, isn't it?
Yeah, I think the word common sense has been used on this call a number of times. And again, you know, if you've just had a break and the wicket goes, you know, straight after, would we need to sanitise the over after? Probably not. But if we're in 5 overs of the 6-over or, you know, 18 minutes of the 20-minute guideline and a wicket fell, then yeah, let's not wait to the 6th over. Let's do it then. But I think what we'd have to realise is then our time or our 6 over resets from the time that we've actually done that. So I would imagine it'll take a little while, and you know, by just playing and getting into the habit of doing that, we'll decide when best to do it. But obviously those blocks of 6 overs or 20 minutes have to be adhered to, but common sense obviously needs to apply in between that.
Yeah, cool. Cool, good stuff. We're going to go to guidance for changing room use and toilets. We're almost at the end of your bit, Keri, if you want to just...
Yeah, I think everybody accepts the fact that toilets are the only indoor facilities that we can regularly use on the site for our bubble of 30 and our essential spectators. However, changing rooms, you know, per se are out of bounds. But there are some exceptions to that. Exceptions to that, again, using common sense. And as I give you some examples, you'll all probably nod. If it's somebody with a little bit of disability and needs to go in privately to change or to put some protective gear on, then obviously a private space would be required. If loads of girls are playing, we know that now, and you know, lots of us all wear these wrap-round thigh pads. You know, most of the lads will be happy just to, you know, drop their trousers and have their sort of shorts on and put around it. Some of the girls may be a little bit more inhibited, so we'd have to find an option for there. And just as importantly, anything that may have a safeguarding issue or a safety issue around that may happen on the field of play or during the circumstances, then obviously we could use the changing rooms as an environment to work through whatever the issues may be there. So the answer is no, we can't use them. The showers are out, but there are some common sense instances where one person can probably go in there or one, maybe 2 if it's a safeguarding issue at max. So within social distancing sort of guidelines. So
cool, thanks, mate. Scott Wilkes, what will the guidance be on drinks breaks during games? Will it be set or down to common sense? I think we've tackled that one, Scott. I think obviously with the 6 overs, every 6 overs we've got to stick to that as much as, well, we have to stick to that actually. So hopefully that answers that one. Lesh, another one for you. I don't know if you want to take this one. Does record keeping for test and trace apply to parents attending or just players and coaches?
We have stated in our guidance participants. I will find the relevant part in the Welsh Government sort of framework guidance. In essence, you need as an organised activity to support the test, trace, protect strategy. Yeah, ideally you would be protecting everybody by having parents' details as well. We in our guidance have specifically said participants, but I will copy and paste the Welsh Gov bit in there.
Generally as well, if you're collecting, Ian, I'll put the query. I think if you're getting youngsters' details, you're unlikely to obviously get a contact number for a youngster, so the parent contact or something.
Yeah, absolutely.
Going to be there anyway. Okay, fab. One more thing, and there's this links actually. People must have a copy of the questions that are coming in because they've beaten me to it. But Keri, last one really for you. Moisture on the ball remaining after being wiped. Where are we on that? And do you want to just give us a rundown on that?
Yeah, every 6 overs, the first thing, it should be ingrained in captains this to make the whole issue a lot easier. The first thing the captain does is sprint to wherever he's got, get his wipe the ball, put it somewhere that no one else can touch it, and then everybody else at the same time is doing their own sanitization, which may take 2 or 3 minutes. The evidence that we're getting back, and it would be good for Jamie to let us know, is of all the games that happened last weekend, there was no report of then the ball being overly moist, when they came back to play, because that is the concern people have got, that the wipe would be, making it overly damp. But if that's the very first thing the skipper does, puts it down, hopefully it's a nice day, it should dry up. We're not, it has to be a microbial wipe, which I Googled, and 90% of the wipes that we buy are microbial wipes. We're not suggesting that somebody puts a big blob of hand sanitizer on the ball and massages it in. Then yes, we probably would end up having it dripping for a few overs. But yeah, get that wipe and at the skipper as soon as possible, put it down and get on. And I think we all got to understand that this is an adapted play process for us to actually get to play the game. And, trying to be overly like, oh, well, I can't get my reverse swing going now because of that. It's more important that we get the game on. But it'd be interesting to hear Jamie's view on the wipe and how that's happened every 6 overs, whether the next bowler may have to bowl, the first half of the over with a little bit of moisture on the ball. But I would expect
jump in there, Jay.
It's worked really well. I mean, I think the thing to do is make sure it's the very first thing that is done in the break. So just, that would be the first thing, as everybody else goes off to just go and do their own personal hygiene, hand washing. Make sure it's there. Hopefully we'll get, carry on a bit of sun and sort of stuff like that. And then if you're just leaving the ball out there, we haven't had any issues with it at all, and we've played multiple matches this week, so we haven't had any issues with juniors bowling beamers because they can't grip the ball afterwards. We had no problems with our ladies teams on Sunday as well. So it seems like, but again, just don't improvise by using hand sanitizer and then a cloth to try and get it off. Just use the anti-bac wipes, and most of them actually aren't that moist. They're it does seem to work really, really well without any bad sort of.
I can think of a few that will come up with that excuse when a few flat ones start. I'm sure there'll be a few that start blaming that. Just a quick one, Jay. We're almost going to wrap up actually. That sanitisation break, is that a massive impact on your delay of game and eating into kind of evening time and stuff?
I mean, it's just become part of the. It's just it's amazing how quickly once you actually implement it, it just becomes part of the game. And you just have to look a lot further than the imposition of every 6 overs and the rest of it. It's obviously you might have to just allow a little bit more for junior games, obviously, to get through it. Just again, be flexible in terms of format. We have a certain amount of time to play. And if we're getting towards the end and the breaks have taken too much of a toll on the game, then you start moving down to 4 balls in and over towards the end. And as long as it's pretty fair, and as I say, all our games have been internal games at the moment, and they're just enjoying that. They're just loving being out and and playing the games. So again, just make sure that you keep an eye on the clock and the rest of it. And if you have to tweak things as you get towards the end to just make sure that you hit those timings, then be flexible enough to do that.
Cool, thanks, mate. That's really helpful.
Yeah, there's a couple of modifications very quickly you could do with midweek games with the juniors. Instead of the most time that the kids take between overs. So why not just bowl 4 overs from one end and then 4 overs from another end? And maybe some clubs are toying with the idea of just bowling 10 overs from one end, 10 the other, so it mitigates to having the additional breaks that we're having.
Yeah, great shout. really good. We've done that before in regional cricket to speed stuff along. Yeah, really good point from Scott, and this is more for the benefit of people catching up with this on record that won't see the chat. Yeah, really important for people on the boundary to make spectators or whoever's on the boundary edge, well, they shouldn't be on the boundary edge for a start, they should be well back, but not to go near the ball. Ball's going to cross the boundary rope plenty of times. It's got to be the people on that pitch that are the ones handling the ball, not people on the outside. So yeah, really good point, Scott. It's a good one for clubs to make people aware of. By and large, unless there's anything major that's coming in, I think that's brought to the end certainly the raft array of questions that we've had prior to tonight. I really hope that that's clarified a fair bit for people, and that's maybe turned some grey into a little bit more kind of black and white on what you should and shouldn't be doing. I think, yeah, it's safe. This is on record, so if anybody's got anything they want to rerun, look back on, rewatch, this will probably be on within the next 45 minutes online and on YouTube for you to look at. Really, as I reiterate what I said at the start, the Cricket Wales website is there to help you. All of the guidance is there. There's a couple of news articles on the news stream and on the COVID section. It's very easy to find that. And it's just a case of trying to digest that guidance as best you can and make sure that people in all parts of the club are fully aware of what's going on. Lesh, do you want to just close us off to finish before we wrap it up?
Sure, I will be very brief. Thank you again, everyone, for being on here, for your patience in waiting for these days to come. Like I say, I am very proud to be the first team sport back in Wales. I hope you enjoy your cricket. Please, please stay safe. Like I say, we need to be part of the solution and we can't be part of the problem. But let's lead the way. Let's show all the other sports how this is done. We've managed to get our guidance out in very good order. Huge thanks, obviously, to the ECB for basically letting me nick their homework and borrow their notes and amend it. But we are in such a privileged position. Please don't abuse that privilege. Enjoy. Be safe, and thank you again for all your patience, and hope it's sunny on Saturday. Jock and Pound.
Thank you.
Superb. Thank you, everybody. We'll see you soon, hopefully. Take care.
Thank you.
Bye.